Patricia Owens. She was 15 years old, and she lived in a very, very poor family. There were multiple siblings, and the parents had hardly enough to keep their kids clothed and fed. So one day, Patty, like I said, she was 15, she went into a local convenience store and she met an Egyptian man who was working there, and somehow they started dating. But it didn't work out for whatever reason. But the man's brother swooped right in, and he started dating her next. Now his name was Yaser Saeed, and he was 30 years old, born in Egypt, drove a taxi. He had come to America 4 years earlier on a student visa. So, after a very short amount of time, he asked her to marry him. Now remember, she's 15 and he is 30. Okay? 15 and 30. Now, obviously, you can't get married at 15 in Texas, or I don't think anywhere in the country, without your parents' permission. So, Yaser went and spoke to her parents. And he said, "Don't worry about your daughter. I can take care of her. I have land in Egypt." He had given her a lot of gifts while they were dating, for a few days, that is. And, he could take her off their hands. They'd have one less mouth to feed, and he was promising her a good future. So they decided to allow it, and they signed the papers. So 2 weeks after starting dating, they got married. Now they married in a Christian church, even though Yaser was Muslim. But I guess that wasn't very important to him. He just wanted to marry Patricia. Or was it because he loved her? I'll let you decide. So they had their wedding, and lickety-split, they ran and got him a green card. And ultimately he did become a full citizen. So, I guess things started out okay, but they began to crumble very quickly. He did not have a lot of money, okay? And he was not doing really well with his taxi business either, so they were struggling. And right away, Patricia got pregnant with their first child in 1988. Well, he was born in 88, let's say. His name was Islam. And then 1 year after that, in 89, they had a daughter named Amina, lovely, very smart, very funny, likable. The older girl, Amina, she was outgoing, and the younger sister, Sarah, she was a little bit quieter, more reserved, but also very likable, very smart. And they were both very beautiful. But right away, their father was extremely controlling over them and the whole family, but specifically over them. They had a lot of restrictions of what they could do. Certainly, they never would be allowed to date. No partying. And he would watch everything they did. He would videotape it, in fact. He videotaped when they were unaware, and he videotaped when they were aware. He was just always there, his creepy self, taking video of who knows what. And I've seen some of the video that he took, just really, really inappropriate, super awkward, of his daughters both fully clothed, but he is zooming in on various parts of them in the camera, and they are trying to cover up with pillows and blankets and telling him to stop, and he's making inappropriate comments. And they're saying they're going to erase it, and he is saying, no, you're not, and that kind of content, okay? It's really sick. And then there's a video of him following his younger daughter, Sarah, to her job. She got a job at a convenience store, I believe. And you can see he's watching through the window, and he says that she is smiling at the customers, and she should not be smiling. And so she is punished for this. Now, going back a few years from what I'm talking about now, I'm talking about them in their teens, but let's go back a few years to when they were both around 9-10 years old. Now, the mother has always said that he physically abused her. And the daughters also said that he physically and sexually abused them. In fact, one day back in 1998, the girls confided in their grandmother that he had been molesting them for a few years. So, that was to be the plan right from the start. He would take them to Egypt and get them married. And then he and his wife would have lots of money and would be very financially stable for the rest of their lives. So, when she was 16, he took Amina to Egypt. I believe he brought Sarah as well. But he was introducing Amina to her new future husband. He was a 47-year-old man. He's like, this is your husband. You're marrying him. Well, she full on refused. And he accepted that at that time because she was actually a little young and they wanted Islam to get married. They wanted Islam to get married before her. That's just the order of things. And he was due to get married a couple years from then. So he's like, that's okay. You don't have to marry this guy. But when you're 18, we're getting you married to an Egyptian guy. Like, it doesn't matter what you think or what you want. That is what is happening. So she was very upset. And she called her mother on the phone. Her mother was in Texas. She didn't go with them to Egypt. And here is what she said to her mother on the phone. Quote, "He wants me to marry an Egyptian man in his 40s. I don't know him. I never want to come to Egypt again." When Patricia received the call, she was at a family funeral. And after getting off the phone, she giggled, reportedly, and she told the other people at the funeral that her daughter was in Egypt and she's supposed to marry an Egyptian man. And they would receive a lot of money when that happened. Okay, so she thought it was kind of funny, apparently, that her daughter, teenage daughter, was being set up with a 40-something-year-old Egyptian man that she never met. Okay. So they came back from Egypt. They came back to Texas, and Amina began dating a boy that she Joseph saw how terrible everything was going, he was obviously very scared for his girlfriend, and they had a very serious relationship. Like, they really loved each other. And he believed that her life was in danger. She was always telling him that her father wanted to kill her and had threatened to kill her and had, waved his gun around at her and all this kind of thing. So he dropped out of school because he felt he needed to get some money so he can, run away with her and they can get married and leave this mess behind. So that was the plan. Now, one day, the two sisters decided this is enough, They have been beaten, they have been threatened, they're scared for their lives all the time. They are running away. That's it. They are running away. Sarah was 17. Amina was 18. It was enough already. So they told their mother, they're like, we're leaving, we're getting out of here. We're going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, because Joseph has family there. We're gonna move there. Bye-bye. But she's like, you know what? I want to go with you. I want to get away too. So the three of them picked up and moved quietly to Tulsa. They got rid of their cell phones, they got rid of the SIM cards so that they could not be tracked. And it was going okay for a little bit. He had no way to find them. Until Patricia went ahead and contacted him. I don't know why. I guess she missed him. I have no idea. And at that point, he started inundating her with calls, telling her to come back, and, things will be good, things will be fine, come back, come back. And bring the girls, I need you and the girls, come back home. So, what does she do? She tells the girls that she wants to go back to Texas because her mother's birthday is on December 31st. And she wants to go put flowers on the grave. That's all. That's what she wants to do. And please, can they come? Please, 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 can they come? So, very reluctantly, they go with her. But when they get close to town, she tells them the truth. She said, okay, I made it up. I didn't want to go to the grave. Your father, he wants us to reconcile. He has forgiven you. He has forgiven them. He has forgiven them. And he wants them back, and he loves them, and blah, blah, blah. So, Amina's like, no way. I am never going back. So, she gets out of there. She goes to a friend's house. And Sarah goes back home to the father's house. So now Patricia shows up at the house where Amina is staying. And she starts pounding on the door. And she is saying, I am not leaving. I insist. You need to come home. Your father loves you. Your father has forgiven you. He wants to take you and your sister out for a meal and talk to you. And no matter what, she would not leave. She just would not leave and he starts shooting the girls. First, he shoots Amina. 2 shots, and she's instantly dead. Next, he starts shooting Sarah repeatedly. She grabs her cell phone, and she calls 911 in the midst of being shot. And she tells the operator, "My dad is shooting me. I'm dying." And then that's all they can get from her. Because I guess, sadly, she died. He had shot her 9 times in total. Then he got out of his cab. He had parked it at the Omni Mandalay Hotel in Irving, Texas. So he left the cab with their bodies in it and disappeared. Meanwhile, the 911 operators are trying to figure out, where did this call come from, and they're tracing it and working on it from that angle. But another taxi driver, drove up to the Omni Hotel and saw this car with basically 2 bleeding bodies laying in there, and he called the police. So they come down and realize who it was. So, sadly, both girls died that day at the hands of their father. And like I said, he took off, and they could not find him. They assumed he went back to Egypt, where it would basically be an impossible situation to get him back. But some years later, in 2014, so now this happened in 2008, but in 2014, there were some sightings of him driving a taxi in New York City and Newark, New Jersey. So they decided, let's, start a bigger search now. He must be in the country. So they put him on the FBI's most wanted list and offered a $100,000 reward if he could be found. And he became one of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives. Now, meanwhile, in 2017, an apartment maintenance worker said he thinks he saw Yaser. He was pretty sure, so he called the police. Now, the place where he saw him was at the apartment of the son, Islam, and his uncle, named Yasin. Uncle Yasin was the brother of Yaser. was finally found guilty of capital murder, and he has been sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. As far as the other two, his son Islam pleaded guilty to harboring a fugitive, conspiring to harbor a fugitive, and one count of conspiracy to obstruct justice. And he was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. And the brother Yasin claimed that he hated Yaser for what he did, and that he would have never helped him if he had known what would happen. I don't know what he thought would happen or what he's saying, but he was found guilty of conspiracy and harboring a fugitive and was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. And that is the whole case. So what do you think? I'll tell you a little bit of what I've been thinking. First of all, rest in peace to Amina and Sarah. What a horrible way to live, and what an even more horrible way to die. They didn't deserve that. They didn't deserve a life like that at all. They were so young, and they could have had such wonderful, happy lives if not for this horrible, horrible father that they had. And of course my heart goes out to the boyfriends and the family and the friends and all of that. But I will tell you, I cannot for the life of me say that my heart goes out to Patricia, the mother. I am sorry, and I know there are people out there, and I'm not arguing with you, but I know there are people out there who will say she was a victim of domestic violence, and that is why she went along with him. Like, I mean, I get that to some extent, but in this situation, I don't buy it, okay? If you believe that, that is perfectly fine. I respect your opinion 100%, okay? We can have different opinions, and that's fine, but my opinion is that, yes, she was a victim of domestic violence, no doubt, okay? But there's more to it. I mean, what she did when they had already gotten away. First of all, they said they were going to leave without her. She could have just let them go, okay? She didn't need to go with them. If she was so dead set on staying with her husband who was abusing her and the kids, she could have stayed. That, you could say people, women who are being abused, they can't leave, they're afraid to leave, so she could have stayed there, right? Let the girls go and live their lives, but no. She wants to go also. She wants to go get away from him, and so then they're doing well, and she goes ahead and spills the beans to him on where they are, and then lies to them and drags them back to their death. Do I think she wanted them to die? No. I kind of think she wanted the money too. She was concerned about getting them back to him for the money. I don't know that for a fact, okay? That is not written anywhere as a fact. I just feel that a lot of what I'm hearing sounds like she's thinking, I gotta get this money, we're gonna get all this money. He told me about the riches we're gonna have from these Egyptian men who are gonna marry our daughters. I mean, that is not okay. That is not a mother. Money or not, if you're a mother. How much money would it take to sell your daughter to an Egyptian man twice her age who she never met and doesn't want to marry? Would there be a number high enough for you to say, okay, here, take her, do whatever you want with her, give me the money, bye-bye, have fun, have a nice life? Would you do that? No, you would not. You would not. You would live in a box on the street before you would sell your daughter to an Egyptian man that she didn't want to marry, okay? Let's be real. Now, but I feel that she just wanted this money so bad, she did not care, really what happened to her daughters.